Okay, so we've made it to our fourth and final part of Sir Gawain and the Green Knight. And at the end of part three, we know that Gawain has kept the girdle, he has violated his oath, he has violated the laws of chivalry in favor of his own self-preservation. So in the opening of our fourth and final part, it is New Year's Eve. Gawain is meant to meet the Green Knight, and outside there is a storm a brewing. And Gawain's journey, I want to kind of combine the next couple of lines together. Before he his departure, his journey, and the preparation for all of that into the next couple of slides. So, a storm's a brewing. It's New Year's Eve, and in the first in the opening, we have this kind of terrible storm, and that goes along with Gawain's journey to the Green Chapel and these very striking images of the desolate, wintry world. And the storm on New Year's Eve and this desolate landscape really kind of emphasize Gawain's sense of dread as he anticipates his reunion with the Green Knight. I mean, this is a great example of what in the literary world, the pathetic fallacy, where the natural world and the weather echo the emotions of a character. And in this case, they really echo the emotions of Gawain. He is helpless. He is dreading this. He's full of anticipation and fear and anxiety. And this barren landscape, this storm outside, all of that really foreshadows Gawain's doom, but also connects back to the other parts of the poem, like in part two, when he's describing the landscape through the journey, the poet. It really exemplifies this magnitude and the power of the natural world and the inability to kind of stop it from progressing. So we also have in our opening this a description of Gawain's dressing for his departure. And he dresses in his glorious garments to include the green girdle in hopes that it will save his skin. But at some point, we have to ask, what is the point? The armor in itself is pretty useless. This armor, these emblems of nobility, of knighthood, these marks of society, the idealism of chivalry, of gallantry, of these social constructions that Gawain represents, ultimately prove futile when pitted against the natural primal threat of death. So I guess that my point that I'm trying to make is that he's going into battle, or he's going into this interaction with the Green Knight, and he knows that the only thing to really kind of save his skin is the green girdle, but he still prepares himself by brandishing this armor and stuff. And I guess my point that I'm trying to make is that if we are meant to die, no matter how much armor we have on our bodies, it's going to happen. So think about that there's going to be a question in the discussion board about the descriptions of dressing and clothing and all that kind of thing. So anyways, moving on. Gawain's bravery. As Gawain says goodbye to the green, or the Lord, Lord Bertilac, who we know now is the Green Knight, he takes a servant, he crosses himself as a means of protection and heads out. And note the landscape of his journey through the wildest of woods and the streams and the slopes. It's hazardous. And the servant that he has taken with him gives him this kind of final out. He says, if you value your health, if you value your life, you'll hear my advice. In the wilderness lives a man who's brooding and brutal and loves bludgeoning. And essentially the servant urges him and tries to tempt him to turn back. And he swears that if Gawain does turn back, he will never tell. His secret will be safe. And he says, please, please, by all means, abandon this quest. And Gawain says, no, I don't want to be christened a coward. I leave it to fate. And this part is really interesting because on the surface, it looks as if Gawain goes bravely into that confrontation, that he is courageous, that he is kind of accepting his fate for being what it is. But is it as it appears? And I think that this goes back to like the whole kind of concept of this poem is that nothing is as it appears to be. There's this duality, there's this element of deception, this his hidden identity to every element of this poem. And Gawain's resolve and bravery in this section of the poem, and honestly throughout, is deceptive. Note the irony here. He is a liar. He says, I'm going bravely, but what is he wearing? He's wearing the girdle. So he knows in the back of his mind, or at least he hopes, that he is untouchable. He is in good hands. Like it's an insurance policy. It's like Allstate. Are you in good hands? Well, he's in good sash. So is Gawain this kind of courageous knight that he appears to be? What does that say about him that he is relying on this sash, on this girdle, to save him? And he's not going in unprotected. Spiritually, I guess he's gone in protected. He's said his confession. He's crossed himself and, all of that. But it's like he needs that kind of extra insurance. And the question is, what does that say to him? The question is what does that say about him as a knight and as a man? So moving on, we get to the Green Chapel. Gawain goes not so bravely into that, if you will. And I just kind of wanted to mention briefly the description of the Green Chapel. It's this kind of bizarre hill and enclosed cavity, a soulless spot, a ghostly cathedral where Gawain's 5 senses tell him that this is a place that Satan has sent him to do a tryst with the devil or something akin to that. I don't have my book in front of me. It's covered by all my other notes. So this imagery of the Green Chapel really kind of further connects the Green Knight to nature, and these religious connotations kind of parallel these pagan ceremonies that would have happened in the kind of natural world. So we have it finally, the kind of rendezvous, the reunion between the Green Knight and Gawain. And really this is like a reunion show. It's been a year since they've stopped filming, and now they're ready to kind of go at it head to head, and they exchange these pleasantries. Oh, Gawain, I'm so glad to see you. You really are a knight of your word. You're so courageous. May God bless you and protect you. And then there's the drama that we've all been waiting for. Gawain bares his neck seemingly. Remember that idea of appearances not being as they seem, seemingly unafraid. And then we have the first attempt where the Green Knight raises his axe with all his strength in his body, and Gawain flinches. He sees it, he flinches, and I mean, who wouldn't? I would. He's only a man. He is a mere mortal, and who wouldn't flinch at that? And the Green Knight chides him and says, you're not Sir Gawain. To flinch in fear, trembling at heart. You are a coward. I didn't flinch in fear. I bested you, essentially. But, I mean, why would the Green Knight flinch if he knows that he's protected by magic? Anyways, so is he really bested? Um, then Gawain resolved, bravely bares his neck one more time with the second flinch. The second attempt. And as the Green Knight kind of raises to kind of swing his axe, he checks himself. It's like at a baseball game when you think they're going to swing and they don't really swing and they check. They check their swing. And that's what the Green Knight does here with the axe. And he says, okay, I was just testing you. Now you're ready. And this really angers Gawain, who says, thrash away, you thug. Let's get it over with. And then finally we have our third and final attempt. And I think it's interesting that these things come in three, the Trinity, Christianity, I don't know. Third attempt, far from fatal. It nicks his neck, and boom, just like that, the challenge is over. The two have met blow for blow, and Gawain has survived. And I mean, of course he survives. He has the girdle. But I want you guys to think back to part one, before Gawain ever swings the axe the first time in Arthur's court at the Green Knight. And he says, there's knowledge I must have. And the Green Knight says, well, you'll have my truth once I've had my swing. And it in that moment, in the part one, it seems as if the Green Knight is saying, well, once you've had your swing at my neck, I'll tell you all you need to know. But really, I think what he meant is that after I've had my turn swinging my axe at you, then all will be revealed. Then you'll get their truth. And after Gawain survives the blow, he does get the truth. The Green Knight is revealed. He is the Lord of the castle, and his name is Bertilac Haut-Desert, and basically that means green lake by the high desert, which that's kind of the old French translation of it, which kind of further connects him to this idea of nature. But anyways, and we get the explanation of the three swings. And we find out that the first attempt is equivalent to the first day in the castle where he was truthful. He exchanges the deer for the kiss. And these kisses are without harm, so Gawain goes unharmed. The second attempt is equivalent to the second day he was truthful, where he exchanges the boar for a kiss. And then the third attempt, the one that causes harm, is the third day where he is untruthful. He is punished for his deceit, because where he exchanges the fox for the kiss, he withholds the girdle, and that is his downfall. That is his failure. And he's only nicked because it was of loyalty that the Green Knight says it's because of loyalty that you lacked, not because you're wicked or a womanizer or worse, but because you love your own life. And so essentially the Green Knight says, hey, I can't blame you too terribly much, because you did this out of love for yourself, not for some other vicious ulterior motive. So essentially what we have is the exchange game, the hunting game, the tempting game, whatever you want to call it, is a test that Gawain fails but ultimately passes. Now, how is that possible? Well, he fails in that he's deceitful, but he passes because he doesn't do it, like I said, out of some um, other kind of vice other than that natural human inclination for self-preservation. So, um, I lost my place. Oh, the Green Knight has designed, or the Lord designed, the exchange game to test Gawain. And remember his words from part 3, you have been tested. Third time's a charm. And he ultimately finds Gawain more prized amongst all gallant knights. So Gawain is essentially worthy. And Gawain's reaction to me is it's humorous because Gawain has finally put two and two together, and I can kind of just stand. I can see him standing there with his mouth open, feeling foolish, and really he is dumbfounded. He's shocked. He throws a kind of a little tantrum and says, "A curse upon cowardness and covetousness. They breed villainy, vice, and destroy virtue." And he throws the girdle, calls it his downfall and his undoing. He says, "I am found to be flawed and false, and through treachery and untruth, I have totally failed." And there it is for Gawain. This is the kind of realization that he has. He realizes that, hey, I'm human. I know, right? Duh. I am not perfect. That's his lesson. That's his transformation. His pride has been his downfall, and so now he has been humbled. And it's really a blow to his ego. And I think that that's what upsets him more than anything, is that it has been a blow to his ego. So notice what the Green Knight says after Gawain kind of has this little temper tantrum and says, "I am a failure." He says, "Confessing your frailty, you are free from fault, declared polished, purged, polished, and pure." So what we have here is this reinforcement of Christian principles. He confesses. He makes a true confession, because remember when he goes to the church prior to the night before he leaves to go to the Green Knight, he confesses, but he knows he's going to sin by keeping the girdle a secret. So it's not a true confession. He hasn't received that true absolution. So it's this reinforcement of these Christian principles where an imperfect man can be made pure through penance, atonement, and confession. So essentially, confess your sins, you'll be forgiven. There is hope for you. And then we have another one of my favorite parts of this poem, Gawain's anti-woman speech. And I urge you guys to really kind of look at that again. And essentially Gawain is invited back to the Green Knight's castle, and Gawain is like, yeah, no thanks, but really I'm good, no. But tell your wife I said hello, she fooled me, and goes on this huge rant about women and how they are the downfall of man and kind of mankind. He says, but no wonder if a fool finds his way into folly, be wiped of his wits by womanly guile. It is the way of the world. Adam, Solomon, Samson, David, all wrecked and ruined. If only we could love ladies without believing their lies. So what's happening here? Gawain is kind of passing the buck a little bit. It's not my fault. It's the floozy of a wife of yours that has caused me to fail. And I don't want to go too much into this because it is in your discussion board for this week, but what's this say about Gawain? It seems rather uncharacteristic for this chivalrous, courteous, gentle knight to kind of go on this tangent about how horrible women are, and how they are the cause of I mean, going back to Eve, that's the reason we have original sin. That is why he was prone to failures because of a woman. And because of a woman, he was tricked into breaking his moral fortitude. And the other question is, what does it say about Gawain? But are we meant to take it seriously? I don't know. I think that that's up to you. And then we find out, going back to, women and their wily ways. Gawain says, you got to tell me the truth. Please just let me know who you are. He says, I'm Bertilac de Hodesert. And oh, by the way, all of this is Morgan Le Fay's fault. And remember, Morgan Le Fay is the half sister of Arthur. And basically, she has used her magic to send the Green Knight into Arthur's court and put Pride on trial to test what distinction and trust the Round Table deserves. And remember, Arthur has a very young kingdom, and they haven't been tested, and they haven't earned their distinction, and she wants to test their reputation. And more to the point, she thought that seeing a giant green knight get his head chopped off might kill Guinevere. So, your Auntie Morgan hates Auntie Guinevere. She's no good for Arthur. So all of this, in some regard, is done out of fun. It's a game. She has been tricked, bamboozled, or not she. She is tricked, she has bamboozled, and she has disillusioned Gawain because he realizes that this entire quest has been a sham, an artifice, and a game that has really shattered his moral belief in the world around him. And we also find out that testing Gawain is not really part of her plan. That was improvised. That was all part of Lord Bertilac's idea, and he is involved in this by chance, not change. And the result of this is really Gawain's disillusionment in the world around him. And they kind of hug it out, and the Green Knight says, I love you, bro. Please come back. He says, no, I gotta go. So he goes back to Camelot. And basically, this is Gawain's reintegration into society. He was lost. Now he is found. He has found some sort of transformation. He has been changed. Not just physically by that kind of scar on the back of his neck, but mentally, emotionally, he is a different man. And he's a more mature man, and he is a more humble man. And his return to Camelot, he shares his story and says that he will wear a green sash as an emblem of his failure, as a reminder of his human nature. And he gives this really heartfelt speech about his journey. And how does the court react? They laugh. They find mirth in this, and the final scene kind of really drives home Gawain's disillusionment. And it already his trust in things have been weakened by this realization that he has been played by Sir Bertilac, Lady Bertilac, Morgan Le Fay, all of whom appeared at first to be respectable, noble characters. But when he arrives back at Camelot, the court's inability to see his moral failure ruins his moral conviction even more. Why they can't understand his moral dilemma, his challenge, this kind of really bizarre and complex emotional, mental game that he's been put through, why they can't understand this kind of dilemma and celebrate his cowardice as courage, he just doesn't get. So he bears this kind of green girdle as a mark of shame, while the rest of Camelot continue to celebrate and raise this green girdle in blind admiration of Gawain and his challenge. So again, this once idealized knight is further idealized in the eyes of the court. And I think that that is what kind of disheartens Gawain the most, because this world, this supposed epitome of human civility and chivalry, has kind of changed for Gawain, and it doesn't glow as brightly and idealistically as it used to. So these kind of things that Gawain once held most important, through the kind of codes of chivalry, they don't bring peace to him anymore. So that is Sir Gawain and the Green Knight in a nutshell. I have one more video where I want to talk more analytically about the symbols and kind of the overall themes of it. It won't be as long as these last videos have been, so bear with me one more time and we will finish up with our study of Sir Gawain and the Green Knight.